Okay, I see the notice that we're live streaming, so we'll open the meeting. Good evening. This is the February 9th meeting of the Open Space Committee of Northborough. I'll read the introductions. This open meeting of Northborough Open Space is being conducted remotely pursuant with Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of the emergency, signed into law June 16, 2021. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19, the town of Northborough has been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible location. All members of the Open Space Committee are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows Northborough Open Space to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded. The public is encouraged to follow along the posted agenda. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. Welcome, everybody. Can you still hear me okay? Good, good. The number one goal of tonight was to go over the CPA applications that we've submitted both directly as the Open Space Committee and in support of the Trails Committee, and give you my assessment of how the open hearing has gone so far in my role on the committee. And secondarily, the only two other agenda items are to discuss our goals for the coming year, what we might work on. And I thought it'd be a good idea to tie ourselves to the master plan goals. I sent everybody a copy of Chapter 9, the implementation goals of the master plan. If you hadn't already seen it, I didn't know if everybody had easy access to that. It's a pretty big document, but I highlighted what was relative to open space. And the last item on the agenda would be to try to review and approve our minutes from the previous three meetings. So back to the first agenda item. As I said, we sponsored three applications. One was for the Conservation Fund, a request for $400,000 to be put into the fund. This mimics what we presented last year and in previous years. Last year, the CPC approved it and the town voted for it, and $400,000 was added to the Conservation Fund. That fund is now up to $766,000. I checked with Jason Little today to get an accurate balance. That's the prior 366 plus the 400 that's been put in now from last year's town meeting. The other two applications that we're helping sponsor are for the ADA accessible trail at the senior center, and also for the Assabet River Aqueduct Bridge design study for pedestrian access. Both of these were presented excellently by Brian. I really appreciate your help. Bob Mahalik backed them up as well. Mia backed them up as well. So I think the CPC got a much more thorough presentation on what was involved in those. The design study for the Assabet River, for the Aqueduct Bridge, I should say, had a lot more scrutiny. The number is higher. Some comments about what was involved and, why the number was so much more. I think those questions were answered. So I want to give you a brief summary. I think that the CPC is of a mind to try to approve every project if they can. There was a summary that I sent you. This was actually a PDF of an active spreadsheet that we use during the committee meetings, and we will use again at tomorrow night's open hearing. And we'll start going through our recommendations and see where the money is going to come from and how it pulls away from the available new revenue and the available reserves. I'm going to share my screen briefly to highlight that. Can you enable me, Fred? I'll wait till he gives me a nod on that because it's not working. But if you have it or you pulled it up yourselves, bottom line, you can see that if every project were to be approved in full, it's over 1,000,007. And the total available for the CPC to consider this year is 1.5 million. That includes the new revenue estimate of 750,000 and includes the total of all the reserves from each of the key categories, plus the so-called unreserved fund, which is basically the reserves that have not been assigned to a particular category. The CPC typically does not like to spend down the entire reserve to zero. We've never done that. There's always an intent to leave some reserve for a project that comes along the following year. It is true that the new revenue is estimated conservatively. So we typically collect more as a town than what we use as our estimate. That goes into the unreserved fund. There's a little bit of extra CPA money that came from the state. I think it's about 29 or 30,000. That will go into the unreserved fund. So there's a little more to deal with than what's shown on the sheet. But we really don't have enough to approve every project in full. Our committee here had discussed our priority, and there was a consensus, if I'm not mistaken, that the Aqueduct Bridge design study and the Accessible Trail Senior Center design study were our priorities compared to the Conservation Fund. Does everyone still share that opinion, share that consensus?
Yes.
See a bunch of nods.
Yeah.
There was some discussion toward the end of the last meeting of the CPC. How would we pull it all off? It was suggested that since the Conservation Fund does currently have over 760,000, was it really necessary that we asked for a full 400? I think it's a very valid question.
Who would make such an outrageous suggestion?
Say it again, Leslie.
I'm kidding. I said, who would make such an outrageous suggestion? It was me that suggested that.
There was a person, yeah, there was one. So I think there's going to be another suggestion by Leslie or someone else that the Open Space Committee either agree to pass on that for this year or agree to a lesser amount that might still make the numbers work. We satisfy the open space recreation minimum by the other two projects if they were approved. So we do not need conservation money to make that minimum. But the main purpose of my calling you together tonight before tomorrow night's was to get everyone's input on that idea. Could the Open Space Committee support it if CPC as a group, as a consensus, was looking to pass on that to enable every other item to be approved? I think most every application is a good one this year in that list. I can't share now, so I'm going to do that.
Hey, John, I have a question.
Yes.
It looks like a lot of these probably are in response to a particular budget. The one that's really big, and it would be awesome if we could kind of share this burden of decreasing our pot, is the senior affordable housing. Is that like down to the dime, or are they kind of giving themselves some wiggle room? Is that just wondering if this kind of like decrease can be shared around, or if, I don't know how it works when you get applications to CPA. Can you decide not to fully fund and partially fund, or you have to kind of do what is asked?
Sometimes we do suggest partially funding. Sometimes we suggest breaking the project in half in phases, which has been common. In this case, the deal is that there is state matching money available in the amount of up to $1 million. To get that, the Housing Authority needs to demonstrate to the state that the CPA money is potentially available. They don't have to have a town meeting vote to bring it to the next level, but they would need a CPA approval that they're going to bring it to town meeting in the full amount that would allow the matching, which would allow the 8-unit proposal to go forward. It is good to note that the NAHC funds contribution, that line actually consists of previous town meeting votes granting affordable housing money to the Affordable Housing Corporation, which is held by the town until it's used, and it hasn't been used yet. The remaining amount in that line is the Affordable Housing Reserve that is in the CPA reserve column, the 127,863, if you can see that at the top of the screen. In addition, the town of Northborough, through Town Administrator John Kader, has offered that he believes 100,000 can be contributed to this from other, I'm going to call it free cash sources. I don't know if that's the complete accurate description. It needs the blessing of Appropriations and Finance Committee, but there was confidence that that would occur. So that's why all of those figures are applied so that the net amount of the affordable housing application, if you will, is 716,821.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't reading that right. So thank you for explaining that. That makes more sense.
You're welcome. So I think, the project, if you will, has been resourceful in contributing everything possible. And again, with the
John, may I
state.
make one other comment about that?
Yes, ma'am.
Looking at your column for the affordable housing reserve, so there's 127,000 of the reserve is for affordable housing as well, right?
Yeah, as I just said, that's in the number. And so I think I need to take it out of the spreadsheet.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
Well, the columns and rows still work because the total in the upper right and lower right boxes, the 1,534,000, that is our total new revenue estimate plus all the reserves, including the affordable housing reserve. And we're already taking that 127 into that line item, NAHC funds contribution. I probably could have just made another row there so it was more clear.
Oh, thank you. I should have been listening better too. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, it's confusing. But basically, take that 127 out of the 623 on that line, you get down to, what is it, 496 something. That's all coming from Northborough Affordable Housing Corporation funds, either their own reserve or what's being held by the town that didn't yet get spent. So that's where that comes from. The other thing to remember at the top left in the column, we have to pay the White Cliffs bond still. This is, I think, year 4 maybe of 10. The bond payments come down, but it is 185. So we really have to take that off the top of our new revenues. And then the next line is administrative fund. We traditionally budget the full 5% allowed by the CPA law. And what we don't use goes back into the unreserved fund. And that's used for appraisals and other things that come up, studies sometimes. We were playing with the math during the meeting, and we will again. Maybe a conservation fund amount of 75,000 or 100,000 is still reasonable. If we did that, let's say it was 100,000, the total comes down to 1,455. It's under the total we have available. CPC might go for that, given the fact that we know a little more extra is going to come into the reserve that's not yet accounted for. But the purpose is to get your buy-in as a committee. Can we agree that if we could get the Aqueduct Bridge design study that everyone's put a lot of time into, it's a known project in town for a long time. It satisfies a master plan goal. So I think the CPC has gotten on board with it after some initial questioning. And I believe the accessible trail for the senior center is a relative no-brainer. I think it's just too much fun and too little money, so to speak, comparatively. And out of the rest of the projects, you could pick and choose. Do we really need to do some things to the burial ground and the cemetery at this time? Not necessarily. The Burial Ground project has some urgency because of so many trees potentially falling So the majority of that money is for tree removal and cleanup. This Historical Society building wants new shutters to restore it to its original look. They just got granted money for painting recently, so is that really needed? Not necessarily. But if you compare it to, do we have an urgent need for more conservation money for something that we know is about to hit? We can't answer that question, so the conservation fund is no more urgent and probably less so than the other requests.
Yeah, John, I mean, some of those items, the historical items, I think it's important to keep those things going. You wait a couple of years and these buildings start to really deteriorate. So I think it makes sense to, those are all great. And the Assabet Bridge, I think, is a really good, it lays the groundwork for any potential multi-use trail that we might be thinking of in the future. So I think it's really important. If we can get 100,000 to kind of keep putting some money into the conservation fund, that would be awesome, just to kind of keep things moving ahead there. But I agree that the senior center is a no-brainer, and the Aqueduct Bridge, I think, is really important and needs to have our full support to move forward.
Okay, good, thank you.
And John, I just want to mention, I had sat on the master plan committee, which I think was well over a year. And we heard over and over again about the need for affordable senior housing. So I think to put those funds so that we can make that happen, which is definitely, we heard from a lot of the residents within Northborough. I think that's, really a smart move so that you can make that project move forward.
Good, thank you. And I'm glad you brought that up. Typically at town meeting, when we're inside, I put it on the screen. Lately we've been outside, it's just in the handout, but I try to update the pie chart that shows where our monies are going and what percentages, if you will, what slice of the pie goes to open space recreation, what slice goes to historical preservation, and what goes to affordable housing. And even though we've done some nice projects with affordable housing, over the course of CPA in Northborough, we're more like 25%, 25% for affordable housing, and the other two big chunks of the pie go into the other two. So when an affordable housing project comes along that has this much potential matching and everything, I really think it's good to get behind it.
Yeah, I think
And I
it's
think
great that
when
they're
the time-
leveraging so much funding, and it's such a great location to expand the senior housing.
Agreed.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, when the time comes for a major, project for open space, the residents will be receptive to this because you already gave to, affordable housing. So I think it was a good move.
Okay, great. So I'm not looking for a vote or anything. I was really just looking for the head nods that I'm seeing that if we, myself, maybe Leslie to back me up, that steer the CPC in that direction, that we try to get perhaps a smaller contribution to conservation fund if possible, but that for sure we want them to back the Aqueduct Bridge and the senior trail.
Agreed.
Great.
I mean, do we want to go into the meeting with a formal proposal, adjusted request, or you want to just wing it during the meeting? I don't mean wing it, but you know what I mean. Play it by ear.
Leslie, if you were to represent the Open Space Committee by mentioning our stance of cooperation, I'm sure it'll come up in a sentence pretty quickly as we look at, how do we make it all work? I think for my part, chairing the committee, I'm going to drive the committee to look at the affordable housing project, get everybody's input, and should there be support, then make a motion that we move to that project first so that we know what we have left over, and then it'll come up in that kind of discussion. So I think it'd be sufficient to do it that way. That's a good
Okay.
idea. Okay.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, I'm going to move right on because the only other thing I wanted to say again was about what do we talk about in the next meetings? We typically renew our commitment to outreach and keeping our options open for landowners that want to participate in having their land conserved through the Conservation Fund. The only one that I know of that was somewhat active was the other family member on Howard Street that thought they might try to get the same benefit that just happened to the one property. I forget the number off the top of my head. But, so we would continue that. But I think I was going to drive us in the direction of, let's look at the master plan. What things came out of the master plan that were focused on the Open Space Committee participating. They're highlighted in that chart, and I highlighted them in the copy I sent to you. And I thought we would just carry that over to the next meeting. We're already hitting on several of them with the Senior Center Trail, with the Aqueduct Bridge, with the dog park, and so on. But looking beyond that, where can we be of assistance and bring that back to the Master Plan Implementation Committee? That's something I think we should do. Anybody have any specific input on that? I really just wanted to bring it up as a topic to carry forward.
Those highlights are really helpful, John. So thanks for sending that in the copy.
You're welcome. It's easy. Nice little feature on Adobe. Well, the only other item is, if you've all studied the minutes, could we attempt to go through them? And if any comments, if not, some votes to approve. I would start with the oldest one, which is October 4th meeting.
John, I did find there was a small typo on page 2 under the section for community preservation committee applications due November 4th. The dollar amount, the first time that 400,000 is mentioned, there's an extra zero.
We're talking 4 million there. That's definitely not going to happen.
Little too much. That was the only comment I saw across all three.
Duly noted. Anybody else? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve these minutes with that amendment on page 2.
John, I'll give it a go. I move we vote to approve the Open Space Committee minutes from October 4th, 2021 as amended.
Second,
Thank you very much, Scott. I'll take a roll call vote by calling your name. Please give me a yay or nay. Scott?
Yay. Aye.
Thank you. Bill?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Michelle?
yes,
Leslie?
Yes,
Paul?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes.
And John, yes. October 4th minutes approved as amended. The next one is October 25th minutes. Anyone see any amendments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
John, I'll go again. I move we vote to approve the minutes from October 25th, 2021.
Thank
second,
you. Thank you, Michelle. All in favor, Scott?
Aye.
Bill?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Michelle?
yes,
Leslie?
yes,
Paul?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes.
And John, yes. October 25th minutes are approved. That leaves us with the November 29th minutes. The minutes are brief. Any amendments? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
might as well finish it up. I move we vote to approve the November 29th, 2021 minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, Scott,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes,
Leslie,
Yes,
Paul,
Yes.
Ashley,
Yes.
and John. Thank you. November 29th minutes are approved. Next meeting date, given nothing really urgent remainder of this month, I was going to suggest going to the end of March. We've been doing last Monday, March 28th. What do people think about that?
Good for
That's good.
Good for me.
I think,
works
John,
for
there's a
me.
select board meeting that night,
Is there okay?
so I would not be able to attend if we had it that night.
Our selectmen on the 14th and 28th that month, is that correct?
Let me double check. Yeah, the 28th and March 14th, I believe as well.
what about the 21st?
It's okay with me? It's okay to move it up, everybody?
Yeah, I can do the 21st.
There's,
and
my
also,
calendar has a Trails Committee meeting posted, but I don't think that's real, so.
Is it unreal?
Well, it was an autofill, like it used to be consistent, but then we started bouncing them around a lot. So we could probably punt that to a different night.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of Monday conflicts anyway, but well, let's try the 21st. I think it's great that you're able to participate, Scott. We were absent a Board of Selectmen rep for many years, so appreciate
I
your,
appreciate then flexibility to move that around. Thank you.
yeah, and again, I think probably relatively brief, but I'll encourage anybody to bring new business or suggested project goal that might meet with the master plan. Anything at all, but I think we've done good work for 2021, 22 so far. That's all I got. I want to thank you guys again for being flexible to meet so that we could get this discussion in before CPC tomorrow night. I'm good to adjourn if everybody else is. Let a hand vote.
Thank you.
Adios. Thanks, everyone.
See ya.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
everybody.
Good night.
Night all.